Over the years, North America has received numerous releases of the Dragon Ball manga. Thanks to this, it can be sometimes confusing to think about what kind you should get. Hopefully, I can help you out with that today. We are going to look at the Dragon Ball 3-in-1s, the Viz Bigs, the single volumes, and the full color editions. First, let's look at the 3-in-1s. The 3-in-1 books are an ongoing release from Viz that contain 3 individual volumes in one book, hence the name. The latest volume is actually set to release March 1st of this year. So, what are the advantages of the 3-in-1s? Well, they are definitely the cheapest way to experience the series, as each book costs about $15. As I said earlier, these contain 3 volumes in one, and the volumes themselves sell for around $10. The Viz Bigs, by comparison, are $20. So if you want the most value, then the 3-in-1s definitely have that advantage. Another thing I like about the 3-in-1s are their appearance. The designs on the covers are taken from the Japanese Kanzenban releases, and they all look great. The spine art is also really nice, and as a result, the 3-in-1s look good on a shelf. The binding for these are also solid. Out of all the releases, these feel the easiest to read simply because they are so flexible. The 3-in-1s feel as though they will actually hold up after multiple readings. I have to say that I appreciate that the 3-in-1s treated Dragon Ball like a single series rather than having a Z split. It's a minor thing, but it still gets a plus from me for that. All of this sounds good, but there are significant disadvantages to the 3-in-1s as well. First and foremost, the paper quality isn't that great. Pages are really thin, and as a result there are times when the images can actually bleed through to the other side a bit. The paper is indeed an issue, and in my opinion the artwork is the least appealing out of any of the other releases. It is serviceable, but I still think that there are people that will be bothered by this. Another thing to note is that the 3-in-1s lack the original colored pages by Akira Toriyama. Back when the manga was running in Shonen Jump, there were often pages that Toriyama would color in himself. These releases don't have any of those. The 3-in-1s are completely in black and white. I suppose I should mention the fact that the 3-in-1s claim to be uncut and uncensored on the back of each book. This, of course, is untrue. There is a fair amount of censorship present in the 3-in-1s, mostly in terms of visual censorship. Mr. Popo's lips, for example, are colored in. There's also a panel in Volume 1 where Bulma flipping off Emperor Pilaf was censored. None of the censorship is too terrible, and I honestly don't blame Viz for things like censoring Popo's lips, but I just can't get behind that advertising. Even though I just praised the 3-in-1 covers, I'm actually not too fond of the fact that they use the Kanzenban covers. The 3-in-1s don't even come close to the Kanzenban releases in terms of quality. The Kanzenban volumes have high quality paper, Toriyama's original colored pages, and many fans consider them to be the definitive physical release of the manga. It just seems kinda weird to use these beautiful designs for such an okay release. Some of the flaws I talked about may only matter to purist fans, but I do think that they were worth mentioning and discussing. The volumes have not been completely released yet, so keep that in mind if you wanted to get them all. The 3-in-1s are a cheap, acceptable way to own the series physically. However, these books are marked down because of the bad paper quality, the continuous censorship, and the use of the Kanzenban covers despite their visual appeal. I don't hate the 3-in-1s, in fact they have their own fair share of benefits, but I dislike how they were marketed. Now we move on to the Viz Bigs. I actually like the Viz Bigs quite a bit, although they aren't perfect either. The Viz Bigs, like the 3-in-1s, contain 3 volumes in one book, and while they are $5 more than the 3-in-1s, they are still cheaper than the individual volumes. The biggest draw of the Viz Bigs to me is the fact that they contain a good amount of Toriyama's original colored pages. I'd say maybe more than half. The paper quality of the Viz Bigs is great, and the artwork, both the colored panels and the black and white images, looks very nice and crisp. The covers are sturdy and not easily bent. The Viz-Bigs also feature some cool spine art. They don't look quite as good as the 3-in-1s or even the single volumes in my opinion, but they still pop out really well. The Viz-Bigs definitely have a cool factor that is hard to overlook. Without a doubt, the biggest flaw of the Viz-Bigs is their durability. The Viz-Bigs are bigger than the 3-in-1s, and their spines are more fragile. I even messed up one of mine just from reading it, although that one was the 5th Viz-Big, which actually contains 4 volumes instead of 3, so that one in particular is probably under more stress. This can be disappointing for people who want to read their copy over and over. If you are careful, you will be fine, but you will need to be careful. The cover designs for the Viz-Bigs are also fairly underwhelming and simplistic. They aren't bad per se, but they are my least favorite out of any of the other releases. That's a bit of a shame because a nice design would have made these books that much more appealing. Another flaw of the Viz-Bigs is that, to my knowledge, they are more censored than the 3-in-1s, the single volumes, and the full colors. I like the Viz-Bigs personally. They're a good value and I like the quality and the color pages. Still, the binding is pretty suspect and the cover designs aren't great. I actually really enjoy the individual volumes. They don't have much censorship at all. The paper quality, while not as good as the Viz-Bigs, is still very solid, as is the artwork. These books have fairly durable covers, and the spines are strong enough to hold up after multiple readings. I also love how they look. Each volume has a cool cover, and the spine art complements the shelf very well. Despite my praise, I do have to admit that these books will probably cost you more than the Viz-Bigs and the 3-in-1s, and they lack the colored pages. Other than the cost and the lack of color though, I don't really have that many complaints. If you are willing to pay a bit extra, you can't go wrong with the single volumes. I'm just going to get this out of the way. The full color editions are my favorite English release. The first thing you may notice about these volumes are their size. They are pretty big, about the same size as a North American graphic novel, which is even bigger than the version they have in Japan, which are the same size as the individual volumes. I personally really enjoyed the size of our version because that allowed the images, which are completely colored in by the way, to really stand out. The paper they used for these are very high quality and even fairly glossy. Every page is a marvel to look at, and it definitely has that cool factor I mentioned before, except this time it's dialed up to 11. Another really cool bonus is the fact that Viz actually kept the Japanese sound effects. This is a really nice touch, and I very much appreciated that. But if you're curious as to what the sound effects actually mean, because they are in Japanese, they do have a translation index for them at the end of each volume. I just absolutely adore these. They are amazing, and I honestly don't even know what else I could say. Really, my only gripes with the full color volumes are the price and the fact that we only have one arc for them at this moment, although the Frieza arc will release in May. I personally think that they are worth every penny, but these do cost $20 a piece, and they only contain the same number of pages as the single volumes. These may not be your cup of tea if you're on a budget, but I still highly recommend them. I guess the binding for the full color volumes isn't super great, but with care they'll be just fine. While the full color editions are spectacular in my opinion, there just aren't many volumes out yet, and there's not even a guarantee that Viz will release the entire Z portion of the series, much less the whole thing. My fingers are crossed that they do. I hope that this helped anyone who is still on the fence. I'm biased toward the full colors, but if you want to collect the whole series, or at least most of it, just remember that each of the other releases have advantages and disadvantages. It just depends on what you're looking for. Again, I hope this video was helpful, and if you have any other questions for me, please leave them below. Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed making this. I'll see you guys in the next video, so until we meet again, goodbye.